Hello everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes rundown for The Circle. This is a film that stars Emma Watson, John Boyega, Karen Gillan, and sadly the recently passed Bill Paxton. And, you know, the premise of this film is that technology is taking over our lives. That we're all down too much in our phones, that we've forgotten how to have personal face-to-face experiences, and that we're losing a grip on our privacy. And while I am not the most negative person about technology, I think there are maybe some interesting points to be made about these ideas. I do think that we need to be in control of ourselves as far as how much screen time we spend. I do think we need to remember to have face-to-face personal interactions with people. I do think that we live more online now and that we are giving up some of our privacy, and we need to have a good balance as far as what we're willing to give up and what we're, wanting to hang on to. But this movie is kind of a train wreck. Beyond all of the philosophical and sort of the idea-based things it's trying to do, it's just not a good movie. And that's disappointing because you would maybe want to have this conversation at some point. It would be nice to have a movie that would inspire some kind of dialogue. And instead you have a movie that inspires you to say, what were they thinking? The first half of this film especially is almost disastrous. The premise is that there's this young woman who gets a job at a brand new fancy tech company called The Circle. And The Circle is sort of your stand-in for Google and Facebook and all of your monolithic technology companies. And she's coming from a job at the DMV where she answers people's questions and has, sort of as a helpline for people. She goes from customer service in the DMV to customer service at The Circle, and I think you're supposed to be like, yeah, that job at The Circle is so much better. But the movie does a really, really bad job of setting up the DMV as like the worst job ever. She answers one phone call, and like the person doesn't yell at her. She doesn't have a really bad time about it. She's just like, I'd rather not be working here. And then she gets her another job, right? Almost immediately. Like, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, she's on the phone being like, oh, I got a new job, yay! Great job setting that up, that this was desirable for her. She gets to her new job, and it's supposed to, like, you can see where the filmmakers thought they were making this look like an appealing job. You could see where they thought, look at all this technology stuff, and everybody gets to have a ping pong table, and where everybody's upbeat and chipper, and look at all the wide open space. But it really, like, when you actually look at what the job is and how the people are around her, it seems like the worst. It really just, it seems like a step down, or at least a lateral move from the DMV to this. This is not a step up. This is not improving Emma Watson character's life. And the problem is, you need to feel that way about these people for this story to work. For there to be this big turn where you realize, oh, the Circle is taking over more and more of our lives. You have to at first buy into the idea that the Circle's pretty cool. And the movie never manages to show you the side of the Circle that's like, yeah, this is the best. It always is tinted with negativity and like a weird version of satire that isn't satire-y enough. There are moments in this movie that feel completely over the top, but it's not played as like black comedy or supposed to be ridiculous. You get the idea that the people making this movie think that nobody ever regulates anything in tech, and that these people actually are monolithically powerful. And it's a weird balance to strike, because when you do actually get to the part where you find out that they're bad, it's not a reveal. Like, you're there already. In addition to all of that, the arc that the movie takes is very bland. As I mentioned, it starts at these guys seem pretty sketchy too. Yep, turned out these guys were pretty sketchy, and there's almost no like up and down and high point and low point or anything in the movie. There is a moment that I actually thought was very effective towards the end, where you do kind of bring that to some kind of climax, because you gotta, there has to be some drama eventually, but it's really just disappointing. This latter half of the movie does make up for some of the terribleness of the beginning, because the beginning has some of the most like awkward acting and bland storytelling I've ever seen. At the end, it gets better. It doesn't become great, but it sort of pulls it out from being a complete trash fire to just being like, that it was a trash fire, but the fire company came and put it out before it actually got out of control, and now it's just a smoldering pile of trash, which is not as dangerous. And it's disappointing because in the whole, there's actually some interesting statements being made here, especially by the end of this movie, which I won't spoil, but it takes an interesting stance on the whole interesting internet privacy and what companies can do for you, and whether or not giving up all this control is good or bad. It has some things that I think are worth discussing, but nobody's gonna discuss them because this movie's so terrible. I don't know how they got Emma Watson and John Boyega and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is in this movie. And not in a small role, and yet everything else besides the cast, everything else feels so cheap. The story feels cheap. The cinematography feels cheap. The lighting feels cheap. It looks like this drab, uninteresting, uninspired nothing of a movie. And it's not good. Don't go watch it. It's based on a book. I can't comment on the book because I haven't seen it. But if the book is anything like this, it must be better. The book must be better, because this is not good at all. Internet's a scary place. Bringing new scary things into our world. We should talk about it at some point. Maybe somebody can make a cool movie about it. Oh wait, they already did. It was called Fast and Furious 7. That's alright. God's Eye. The Fast and Furious 7 plot did a better job of putting this idea on than The Circle did, where it was the whole point of the movie. Anyway, that'll do it for this week, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Drop down in the comments if you've seen this and let me know what you thought. If you've read the book, I'd love to hear from you, because I really want to hear how these ideas are explored in the book. But until next week for the Human Echoes Rundown, I'm Albert, and I'll see you later.